Have you ever caught yourself looking at an old photo, maybe one with your children when they were little, or a picture of you and your spouse on vacation years ago, and thought, that's what growing old is supposed to look like? Laughter at a crowded dinner table, warm embraces during the holidays, someone by your side no matter what. We all grow up believing that, don't we? That in our later years, we'll be surrounded by the people we love most. Our children, our life partner, maybe even grandchildren racing through the house. But somewhere along the way, life takes a turn. And for many women, especially after 60, it doesn't quite look like the vision we held on to. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not to be discouraging, but to open our eyes to a deeper truth. One that can feel unsettling at first, but also incredibly freeing. Because the truth is, the people you think will be with you until the end, your husband, your children, may not be the ones who actually are. And no, this isn't about blame. It's not about pointing fingers or holding grudges. It's about gently removing the illusion of a perfect old age so we can start building a life that's strong, supported, and deeply rooted in reality. Now I want you to take a deep breath with me. This conversation isn't meant to hurt. It's meant to heal. It's meant to prepare you, empower you, and help you feel less alone. Because believe me, you're not alone in this. We've been taught from a young age that family is everything, that it's the safety net that will always catch us. We picture ourselves growing old, surrounded by familiar faces, cared for with love and attention. And sometimes that does happen. But more often than not, real life has other plans. Our children, the ones we gave our hearts and years to, grow up. They become busy with jobs, their own children, bills, pressures. They move across the country, or even just across town, but their time becomes stretched thin. And it's not because they don't love us. It's because the rhythm of modern life has changed. The kind of closeness we once had, the daily check-ins, the shared meals, the holidays we never missed, those start to slip away. Some of you may already be feeling that. You might be wondering why your phone doesn't ring as much, why your adult children seem distracted or distant, why the house feels too quiet on a Sunday morning, and then the questions creep in. Did I do something wrong? Why don't they visit? Am I being forgotten? But let me stop you right there, my dear friend. This isn't your fault. This is something women all over the world, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, are quietly facing. And it's not talked about nearly enough. The love between you and your children doesn't just vanish. But love alone doesn't always translate into presence, into care, into being there when you truly need someone. Then we turn to our partner, the one who's walked beside us through decades. The one who promised in sickness and in health. And yes, many women do find strength in that bond. But old age, as tender as it can be, also brings new challenges. Your husband may be there physically, but emotionally or practically, things shift. He may be dealing with his own health concerns. You may both be navigating memory issues, physical limitations, fatigue. And if you're a widow, as so many women over 60 are, then you already know the ache of waking up to an empty side of the bed, of having no one to make coffee for, of listening to silence where there used to be conversation. These aren't just sad stories, they're realities. And if we ignore them, we leave ourselves vulnerable. Vulnerable to disappointment, isolation, and resentment. But when we face them, when we talk about them, something powerful happens. We begin to shift. We begin to ask, if not them, then who? Let me share something personal. I once spoke to a woman named Carol. She was 72, vibrant, witty, and wise. She had raised 4 children, been married for nearly 40 years, and was known for hosting the best Thanksgiving dinners in her town. But when her husband passed suddenly and her children moved out of state, everything changed. At first, she waited for the phone calls, the visits, the invitations, but they didn't come as often as she hoped. And for a while, she felt forgotten. But Carol is the kind of woman who doesn't let life swallow her. She picked up the phone and called an old friend she hadn't spoken to in years. They started meeting for coffee once a week. She joined a walking group at her local senior center. She learned how to use Zoom to join a virtual book club. And slowly, her days filled with new faces, warm laughs, and a sense of belonging. Not because her family came back, but because she reached out beyond them. Carol taught me something. She taught me that while love from family is a beautiful gift, it's not the only one we get in this life. And sometimes, it's not the one we can count on most. We need to build something wider, something stronger. So I invite you to ask yourself, who do you have in your life right now that truly sees you? That checks in on you, that shows up? Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's someone you met at church or your local yoga class. Maybe it's a nurse you've gotten to know or a friend you've known since childhood but drifted from. Those people, those connections, matter more than we often realize. We can't change the past. We can't force our children to slow down or turn back time with our spouse. But we can open our arms to the present. We can say, I deserve to be surrounded by care, by love, by real presence. And we can take steps to make that happen. There's no shame in needing support. There's no failure in saying, I feel lonely. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can admit. Because it means you're ready to start doing something about it. You see, the beauty of this stage in life, yes, even with its aches and quiet mornings, is that we're no longer bound by the same roles we once were. We're not just mothers or wives anymore. We are women with wisdom, resilience, and an open road ahead. And that means we get to choose who we walk with. We get to redefine what it means to be surrounded, supported, and loved. That starts by shifting our expectations. Not lowering them, but grounding them in reality. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if my children aren't checking in, maybe I'm not important anymore. Or, if my partner can't take care of me like before, then I'm alone. But your worth has never depended on how often someone calls or what your relationship status is. Your worth comes from you, from the life you've lived, the love you've given, and the courage you show just by waking up and choosing to keep going. Now, I want you to think about something. Who would you call if you needed help with something small, say, getting groceries during a bad weather week, or needing a ride to a doctor's appointment? If no one comes to mind right away, that's okay. But that's also your signal. A gentle nudge that now is the time to start building those connections, not later. Because old age doesn't just arrive one day and ask for permission. It creeps in quietly, and when it does, the people who will make it feel less lonely are often the ones you invested in today. Let's talk about some of those people, shall we? There's something incredibly special about friends. Not the ones you wave to in passing or share a Facebook post with once a year. I mean real friends. The kind you can sit with in silence and still feel heard. The kind who bring you soup when you're sick or laugh with you over memories that no one else remembers. But friendships, like gardens, need tending. Maybe you had strong friendships once, but life scattered you apart. It's not too late to pick up the phone. To say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Want to grab coffee? You'd be surprised how often someone on the other end is waiting for that exact call. And don't underestimate how quickly new friendships can bloom. I know it's not always easy to put yourself out there, to go to a community center, a local event, or even just say hello to someone at the library. But you never know where that first hello might lead. You might meet someone who becomes a part of your weekly routine, someone to laugh with, cry with, or simply walk around the block with. In the end, it's not the number of people in your life, it's the quality of the ones who show up. Another figure we often overlook? The people living right next door. Yes, neighbors. The ones who might wave from their porch or quietly bring your trash cans in when it's windy. You might not think much of that kind of help, but during tough times, neighbors can be your first responders. They're the ones most likely to notice if your lights haven't been on for a while or if you haven't picked up your mail. They're close by, and that proximity is powerful. If you haven't gotten to know your neighbors yet, it doesn't take much. A smile. A plate of cookies during the holidays. Asking about their garden or their pet. You'd be amazed at how one small act can open the door to something so comforting. And when a relationship like that grows, it becomes mutual. You help them when you can, they help you when you need it. That's community, not some abstract idea, but real people looking out for one another. Then there are the communities you choose to be part of. Maybe it's your church or your volunteer group. Maybe it's a weekly Tai Chi class or a painting circle. These spaces matter. They aren't just about filling time. They're about filling your heart. They give you something to look forward to, and even more importantly, they give others a chance to know you. To see you as more than a quiet woman sitting alone. To see your story, your humor, your strength. In these groups, you find people who might not share your bloodline, but who can feel like family just the same. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to be perfect or put together to show up. You just need to be present. Consistency builds bonds. Over time, those casual greetings become deeper conversations, and before you know it, you're surrounded by people who notice when you're not there, and who miss you. Now, let's not forget another important group, the care professionals who may one day be part of your life. The nurse who gives you your medication with a smile. The home health aide who listens patiently as you share a memory. The physical therapist who cheers you on when you're trying to walk a little farther than yesterday. These people, yes, they are doing their job. But if you treat them with dignity, kindness, and trust, you'll often find that their care becomes something more. They begin to see you as a person, not just a task. And that human connection can bring warmth even in the most clinical of settings. So don't be afraid to engage with them. Ask their names. Thank them. Share a story or a laugh. These little interactions matter more than you might think. And through all of this, remember one thing. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation for everything else. If you don't believe you're worthy of love, support, and friendship, it's hard to welcome it in. But when you start treating yourself with the same compassion and attention you offer others, something shifts. You start to attract people who reflect that back to you. You start to feel less like a burden and more like a blessing. You've spent your life taking care of others. Now it's time to take care of you. That doesn't mean giving up on the people you love. It means expanding the circle. It means giving yourself permission to create a life where you're not just waiting on a call or a visit, but actively nurturing a network that gives back to you. The truth is, those who stay until the end may not be who you always thought they'd be, but they are out there. And the good news? You can start finding them, or becoming one of them, today. It's easy to feel like the world is moving faster than we can keep up with. And in some ways, it is. But here's what doesn't change: the human need for connection, for presence, for someone to see us, hear us, and stand beside us when life gets hard. That doesn't disappear just because we reach a certain age. In fact, it becomes even more important. So if you've been telling yourself, "I'm too old to make new friends," or "I should just accept that I'll be alone now," I want you to take a moment and really hear this. It's never too late to build a life that feels full. Yes, it takes courage to start again, especially when the people you thought would be there aren't. But you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from strength, from everything you've learned, survived, and given to others. You've got more wisdom in your little finger than some people gain in a lifetime. And you still have so much to offer. Sometimes we think, well, if I'm not needed like I used to be, then what's the point? But your value isn't based on who needs you. Your value is in who you are. And if you can begin to share that, even in small ways, the world will meet you there. One conversation, one smile, one invitation. That's how new chapters begin. There's one more truth we need to touch on. and it's one that's both tender and empowering. The one person you are guaranteed to be with until your very last breath is you. That may sound lonely at first, but it's actually the most beautiful realization of all. Because it means that no matter what happens, who leaves, who forgets, who can't be there, you are not lost. You are not helpless. You are never truly alone when you are fully present with yourself. Your body, your mind, your spirit. These are the companions that walk with you every day. So how are you treating them? Are you nourishing your body with foods that energize you? Are you giving yourself the chance to move, even just a little, each day? Because strength isn't just about lifting heavy things. It's about being able to get out of bed with ease, to carry your groceries, to climb a few steps without fear. And what about your mind? Are you feeding it the same way you did when you were younger, with books, stories, questions, and ideas? When we stop learning, we start shrinking. And you, my dear, were never meant to shrink. You were meant to keep growing, blooming, expanding, even at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. Your spirit, too, needs care. It needs laughter, joy, stillness, reflection. It needs permission to grieve, to hope, to dream again. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you've felt forgotten. Maybe life hasn't turned out the way you imagined. But your story is still unfolding, and you have the pen in your hand. And let's not forget that while you're creating space for others to care about you, you're also becoming the kind of person others want to be around. People are drawn to kindness, to warmth, to authenticity. You don't have to be flashy or loud. You just have to be real. And that, my friend, is your superpower. So who will truly stay with you until the end? It might be that friend who surprised you by calling when you needed someone most. Or the neighbor who brings you soup on a cold evening. The fellow volunteer who remembers your birthday. The nurse who always lingers a moment longer to ask how you're feeling. The woman you met in a community class who now walks with you every Tuesday morning. These aren't characters from some far-off dream. They're people you already know, or are just about to meet. But the most important person in that picture is you. You are the constant, the anchor, the one who gets to shape the way this chapter goes. And that, in itself, is extraordinary. So I want you to take a moment today, maybe after this video ends, to sit quietly and ask yourself, who are the people I've kept close? Who are the ones I've let drift away? Who do I wish I could know better? And how can I, starting now, begin to plant seeds of connection that will grow into something beautiful? Maybe it's as simple as calling someone you've missed, or introducing yourself to a new neighbor. Maybe it's signing up for a community class, or volunteering one afternoon a week. Or maybe it's taking better care of your body, mind, and heart, so you can be ready to connect when the moment comes. You deserve a rich, meaningful, and supported life, not just in your youth, but especially now. And while we can't control the past, or even always the people around us, we can choose how we move forward. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you. Your voice matters here. Share your story in the comments, the struggles, the joys, the lessons you've learned along the way. You never know who might read your words and feel just a little less alone. If this video gave you comfort or clarity, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps more women just like you find their way here, and it tells us we're building something worth continuing. Above all, I hope you remember this. Your life is still rich with possibility. The people who stay with you in the end may not be who you once imagined, but that doesn't make them any less real. And you, strong, thoughtful, wise you, are the greatest gift you bring into every room you enter. Here's to living your most honest, beautiful, connected life, not someday, but starting today.